Welcome to Vanguard, where humans aren't the underdogs. We're the endgame. Enjoy the journey.
The roar of 80,000 spectators thundered across the Durasteel Coliseum of Neotar, shaking its ancient foundations with every chant and cheer. Above the blood-soaked arena floor, holographic advertisements shimmered in mid-air, flashing garish endorsements for Zilk's synth beer unregulated neural enhancers and portable pleasure mods. They painted the crowd in flickering greens and blues as orbital drones zipped overhead, broadcasting the spectacle to 18 systems across the outer rim. The Colosseum was ancient in construction, crude by modern architectural standards, but its violence had never gone out of style. Not in this galaxy. Beneath the West Stand's deepest shadows, where the noise dimmed to a dull vibration, Corey Laser lay stretched out on the cold metal floor, one arm tossed lazily over his eyes. His black coat, frayed and battle-worn, served as a makeshift pillow. He wasn't asleep, not quite, but he was trying. The soft hum of Andromeda Symphony No. 5 trickled from his noise-canceling earbuds, attempting and failing to drown out the arena's bloodlust-fueled roar. "Ugh," Corey muttered. He reached into a crumpled snack bag beside him. His fingers scraped the bottom, unearthing nothing but dusty crumbs. Tragedy. He shoved them into his mouth anyway, chewing slowly as if delaying the inevitable. Years of travel across forgotten sectors and backwater systems had taught Corey a singularly valuable skill: he could rest anywhere, through anything. The dark crescents beneath his eyes were proof of his mastery. A boot tapped his leg hard. "Hey, vagrant," a voice snapped above him. "You can't sleep here." Corey didn't flinch. "I'm not sleeping," he replied, voice drowsy but clear. "I'm existing with my eyes closed. Same difference. Move, or I'll call enforcement." With a sigh that sounded like the soul leaving his body, Corey cracked one bloodshot eye and looked up at the security guard. "The upper decks are louder," he said simply. "Trust me." "I tried." The guard frowned, taking in Corey's scruffy 3-day stubble, the crumpled clothes, and the half-empty snack bag. "How'd you even get in here? These tickets cost 3 months' wages." "Side entrance. Broken lock. Been that way for years." The guard swore and tapped his comm. "Maintenance, yeah. Southwest entrance. Fix that door." But before more could be said, a thunderous voice echoed through the arena, momentarily drowning out everything else. "And now, citizens of the Zurari Empire and beyond, the cleansing shall begin." The crowd roared, even louder, stomping feet and raising fists in frenzied unison. The guard sneered at Corey. "You've got 5 minutes," he spat, then turned and ran back toward the action, unwilling to miss what came next. Corey popped the last dusty fragment of Galacto Crunch into his mouth and sighed. 5 minutes. I can squeeze in a solid 4-minute nap. But then the tone of the crowd changed. Sharper, hungrier. Even behind his closed lids, Corey could sense it, a collective shift in the emotional temperature. Against his better judgment, he cracked an eye open and tilted his head toward the arena floor. A beam of light stabbed downward from above, illuminating a massive containment cube. Inside, shadows writhed and pounded against its walls, casting warped silhouettes against the shimmering force field. A voice boomed. "Behold, the Zorg Master. Birthed in the laboratories of Outer Drecht, forged for purity, programmed to purge." The crowd shrieked in delight. But then the second spotlight snapped on, illuminating the opposite end of the arena. 4 armored guards dragged a struggling figure into the light. She was impossible to miss. Even from a distance, even through haze and chaos, Corey noticed her immediately. She was stunning and furious. Crimson skin gleamed beneath the Colosseum's harsh lights. Her white ceremonial gown dirtied from the drag. Heavy chains clamped around her wrists and ankles. But her back was straight, her chin high, and her electric blue eyes were locked forward, filled with defiance and disdain. The announcer bellowed again. Remnalia, last daughter of the fallen Zerari line. Today the crimes of your ancestors are answered by your sacred sacrifice. The crowd erupted into a unified chant, "Purge, purge, purge." Corey groaned, jamming his earbuds deeper into his ears. "Oh, for silence's sake," he muttered. Rem was shoved to her knees 20 meters from the cube. Her chains clanked against the blood-stained ground. She didn't flinch. "I am Remnalia," she shouted, her voice echoing through the arena. "Rightful heir to the Zerari throne, my people committed no crime. Only those who fear truth dare silence us." A guard slapped her. The crowd cheered. Corey pulled one earbud out. "Great," he muttered. "Now they're louder." The containment cube hissed as its walls began to lower. Inside, the creature twitched, then rose. A nightmare forged of bone steel and acidic bile. 6 mouths lined with metal fangs opened one by one. 12 copper-glowing eyes moved independently, scanning the arena. Its limbs were long insectoid, jointed at unnatural angles. Yellow-green slime dripped from its mouths, sizzling as it hit the ground. The Zorg Master awakens. Corey finally sat up, brushing dust from his jacket. "Of course," he grumbled. "This beast's going to scream all night." He stood, stretched his arms, and calmly folded his coat over one arm. With deliberate slowness, he checked his inner pocket, one backup snack pack. Good. Then, without urgency or drama, Corey began descending toward the arena floor. The last thing anyone expected was a nap-deprived drifter walking toward a galactic execution with crumbs on his shirt and boredom in his eyes. But that's exactly what happened, and the galaxy would never be the same. Corey's boots echoed faintly as he strolled down the Colosseum steps, weaving casually through the spectators, most of whom were too transfixed by the unfolding ritual to notice the lanky figure moving against the tide. He didn't run, didn't sneak, just walked like a man headed for his usual park bench nap, not toward a genetically engineered war beast preparing to consume a chained royal heir. Down below, the Zorg Master stalked the arena, its 6 mouths hissing with anticipation, acidic saliva dripping in sizzling arcs. Its heavy tail, tipped with jagged metal barbs, lashed the ground, gouging deep scars into the Durée Crete. The monster's 12 eyes locked on Rem, who knelt unmoving, eyes locked back in defiance. Her chains glowed faintly, energy restraints, reinforced, military grade. She didn't flinch, but her breath had quickened. Corey reached the security barrier, a sleek 2-meter wall of pulsing blue light separating audience from sacrifice. He stood there for 2 whole seconds, then shrugged and casually climbed over. The moment his feet hit the arena floor, the system registered the breach. Alarms wailed. Spotlights jerked in confusion. "Hey, you there," a voice called over the loudspeaker. "You can't. Too late." Corey was already walking across the sandhands in his pockets, his expression mildly annoyed. Rem's electric blue eyes snapped toward him in disbelief. Who was this another executioner? The Zorg Master moved, shifting its massive bulk with unnatural speed. Its central body lunged forward, primary mouth opening wide, layers of teeth, spinning like drills liquid venom, spraying across the ground as it came. The creature roared, a deafening cacophony of overlapping shrieks, amplified through internal speakers. Corey didn't stop. He didn't dodge. He yawned. Then, just as the creature's mouth descended, he moved. One step, one fist, a blur. His knuckles connected with a precise spot between the monster's central cluster of eyes. The impact wasn't flashy, no slow-motion spiral or explosive kinetic burst, just a clean fluid punch with no wasted motion. It sounded like a thunderclap. A shockwave rippled across the Colosseum floor. The Zorg Master froze. All 12 eyes blinked, all 6 mouths snapped shut. Then the creature keeled over sideways like a toppling building. Boom. Silence. Absolute, perfect, stunned silence. Corey stood there for a beat, rubbing his knuckles like he'd just tapped a particularly stubborn vending machine. Rem's mouth parted, but no sound came out. "You're very loud," Corey said, glancing at her. He crouched beside her, examining the energy chains with the absent-minded focus of someone diagnosing a broken toaster. Then he gripped them in both hands and twisted. The restraint shattered. Metal links clattered to the floor like glass beads. Rem blinked. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who wanted a nap," Corey muttered. He lifted her effortless fluid and slung her over his shoulder like luggage. "Put me down!" she shouted, pounding his back with clenched fists. "I am royalty." "I know," Corey said, unfazed, still being loud. The Colosseum was beginning to react, now delayed murmurs rising to panicked chatter. Someone in the stands screamed. Security teams scrambled. Cameras whirred into focus. Dozens of voices shouted at once. From somewhere high in the VIP box, a scholar's voice cried out, "That's strike!" That was the ancient form, Silentar's technique. And just like that, the spell broke. The crowd erupted. A wave of chaos surged. Guards charged from multiple entrances, their electrified batons crackling. The announcer's voice cut in, glitching from shock. "Seize them!" The head, ceremonial guard shouted. "The ritual must be completed." Corey stopped walking. He gently set Rem on her feet beside him. "Stand back," he said. "What are you?" He gestured vaguely. Less talking, more standing back. The first guard reached him, baton raised in an overhand swing. Corey sidestepped. One step, clean, calm. He touched a point at the man's neck. The guard crumpled instantly. Two more came in from the sides. Corey flowed between them like silk, sliding between blades. One got a light jab to the solar plexus. The other found his weapon gone, somehow transferred into Corey's hands. Corey spun it once, cracked it in half over his knee, and tossed it aside. "I'm just trying to leave," he told them. "You can go back to whatever this is." The head ceremonial guard pushed forward, eyes wild with fury. "Heretic, the ritual is sacred." Rem stepped forward, chains still hanging from her wrists. "Your ritual is a lie," she said. "The Zerari were betrayed, not broken." "Silence, witch." The guard raised his baton. Corey caught the man's wrist in one hand. He squeezed. The guard dropped to his knees with a scream. "We're leaving now," Corey said flatly. "It would be energetically inefficient for you to try stopping us." He released the man, who collapsed in a gasping heap. The rest of the guards backed away, forming a hesitant circle of indecision. Rem stared at him like he'd grown 3 heads. "Who trained you in the ancient forms?" she asked. Corey blinked. "No one important." He offered her a puff from his backup snack pack. "Hungry." Rem hesitated. Then she took it. It wasn't delicious, but it was better than being fed to a monster. And it was the first thing anyone had offered her in kindness in a very, very long time. Corey didn't run. He didn't bolt for a shadowy exit or vanish in a puff of smoke. No. He strolled toward the eastern corridor with Rem beside him, chewing another puff and swatting at a hovering camera drone like it was a buzzing insect. Around them, chaos reigned. Security alarms shrieked, spectators panicked, and guards argued about whether to pursue the man who just one-punched a lab-born titan. Rem matched his pace, though barely. Her wrists still bore red lines where the energy restraints had burned into her flesh. She kept glancing sideways at him, her electric blue eyes narrowing with every step. "You move like a soldier," she said at last, voice taut. "But you look like a vagrant. Which are you?" "Neither," Corey replied with a shrug. "Just a guy who wanted to finish a nap." "You collapsed a genetically engineered monster with one hit." It was being loud. "And you broke military-grade energy restraints barehanded. Annoying handcuffs. I hate buzzing." Rem blinked, exasperated. "Are you deliberately being evasive, or is this some psychological defense mechanism rooted in sarcasm?" Corey smirked. "Yes." They reached a side corridor leading to the underground transit lifts. Corey tapped the panel. The doors remained closed, red error lights blinking. Locked Rem said, already pulling wires from a nearby control box. Manual override. Give me 30 seconds. You've got 15. We've got fans. Rem worked swiftly, her fingers dancing over exposed circuits. Sparks flew. Alarms blared louder. Corey turned his head as footsteps thundered behind them. Friends incoming, he said mildly. Almost there. You have a ship. I have a fleet, Rem replied, not looking up. Hiding behind Neotar's third moon. Just needed to escape the arena. You planned for this. Corey raised an eyebrow. Of course not. But I planned for everything. Corey snorted. Except for me. The lift hissed open. Guards rounded the corner. Corey stepped backward into the lift, dragging Rem with him. The doors closed just as stun blasts scorched the walls. The lift plunged downward. Silence for a beat. Just the hum of the shaft. Then Rem asked, "Why help me?" "You were too loud to ignore," Corey said. "That's not an answer. It's the one you're getting." They stepped out into a restricted hangar security disabled lights, flickering from system resets caused by the arena disruption. The Federation diplomatic vessel, Eternal Light, waited on standby, sleek in silver, its side hatch open. A harried protocol officer blinked at the sight of them. Princess Rem. "What?" "No time," she barked, yanking Corey behind her. "Lift off now." Within minutes, the Eternal Light detached from Neotar's surface and ascended into orbit. Behind them, the Colosseum faded into a swirl of dust and glowing advertisement banners. Corey collapsed into a plush bench inside the passenger cabin, propped his boots up, and finally exhaled. Better, he said. Still noisy, but less so. Rem stood across from him, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You're not just some lazy drifter," she said. "I absolutely am. You know ancient combat forms can disable an elite guard with a flick and drop a creature designed to slaughter armies." Corey popped another puff in his mouth. Also very good at snacks. She sat down opposite him, her gown stained and torn but her posture regal. "The move you used," she said softly. "It was taught only during the Union of 12 Constellations. That style vanished 300 years ago. My ancestor Silantar was the last known master." Corey didn't answer. Rem leaned in. "The guard said your name." "Corey, Laser." He groaned. "It's not my fault. My mom named me after some ancient holovid actor she liked." "Are you related to Silantar?" Corey stared at the ceiling. "No." "You're lying." He met her gaze deadpan. "You're being persistent. You saved me. Twice. I think I get to ask a few questions." He sighed again, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "I'm not anyone important. I'm not a warrior. I'm not a legend. I'm not a chosen heir. I'm just a guy who wanted to sleep through a festival and ended up punching a screaming metal squid." Rem narrowed her eyes. "You don't act like a nobody." "That's the problem with people," Corey said. "They see what they want. I keep telling them otherwise. No one listens." The ship's AI crackled over the comms. "Now entering orbit. Long-range scans detect increased Krevorg fleet activity near system edge." Rem stood immediately, regal presence returning. "I need to speak to the Admiral. The Krevorg shouldn't be this close." Corey remained slouched, waving vaguely. "Tell him to quiet down while he's at it." She hesitated, then looked over her shoulder. "You're coming with me." "No. You're a witness." "I'm tired. I'm giving you diplomatic clearance." "That sounds like paperwork." "You're under royal escort now. By ancient law, that makes you my companion." He blinked. "Companion. It means you have to stand next to me, not nap." Corey stared at her. "This is starting to feel like a punishment." Rem allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Now get up." Corey grunted and hauled himself to his feet. As they stepped into the diplomatic corridor together, Rem whispered under her breath, "Silantar, if this is your descendant, you were a maddening man." Corey, somehow hearing it, muttered back, "He sounds like a legend." And Rem didn't quite know if he was joking. The Eternal Light drifted in high orbit above Neotar, its twin engines humming softly as diplomats, officers, and various officials scurried across its pristine decks. The ship gleamed like a silver arrow in the starlit void, sleek, intimidating, and politically overcompensating. Inside chaos of a different sort reigned the diplomatic reception. Corey stood next to Princess Remnalia on the ceremonial line wearing an outfit that screamed formal, but looked more like it had been attacked by a fabric hurricane. Despite attempts to dress him in Federation ceremonial robes, he'd insisted on keeping his old black coat, now awkwardly draped over the outfit like a towel on fine china. Dignitaries from all 18 systems paraded past them, each offering carefully rehearsed platitudes, fealty, or wide-eyed awe at the heir of Silentar. They bowed low to Rem. They whispered and stole glances at Corey. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Every 3 minutes without fail, Corey leaned toward Rem and muttered, "Is this over yet?" By the 14th time, she stopped answering. "Why are there so many people?" he asked, watching a delegation of Merlians perform a 5-minute nose-touching ritual that ended in coordinated sneezes. Wasn't ending galactic bloodlines enough for 1 week? "It's diplomacy," Rem whispered between clenched teeth. "We must show unity." "Unity's exhausting," Corey said. "So is standing. Try ruling a sector."
No thanks. I'd nap through every war.
The banquet began in the Great Hall, a cathedral of shimmering crystal panels, starlight-filtered ceilings, and a dining table so long it required drone delivery at the far ends. A 17-course menu was presented, featuring delicacies from every Federation system: smoked sky urchin, flame-seared moss meat, compressed starfruit tarts, and something that looked suspiciously like a still wriggling eyeball. Corey picked up a small, delicate fork and stared at it like it had insulted his lineage. "Why are there 6 forks?" he muttered to Rem. "This one's got holes in it." "Because civilization exists," she replied sharply. "Use them properly." Too much effort. He picked up the shellfish extractor and spooned soup with it. Rem counted to 10. The toast began. A long-winded Merlian ambassador stood, his gills flaring proudly. "To eternal alliance," he said, voice echoing through the chamber. "To the rebirth of ancient power. To heroes who rise from obscurity." A soft snore interrupted him. All heads turned. Corey had fallen asleep face first on the table. One hand still clutched a dinner roll. Gasps echoed like falling glass. The Federation's chief diplomat blanched. One ambassador dropped his ceremonial drink in horror. Rem closed her eyes. Then she stood smiling serenely. "Please," she announced smoothly, "do not be alarmed. The Master has entered a meditative state." Silence. Then murmurs of curiosity. "Ah," someone whispered. Silentar was known for this too, sleeping between battles. It's ancient warrior discipline. Another nodded. "He's conserving energy for the next strike." Remarkable. The moment passed. The banquet resumed. Rem sat beside Corey's slumped figure, gazing at his peaceful, absolutely oblivious expression. He looked content, completely detached from the expectations pressing in on everyone else. And for a fleeting moment, she envied him. She who had been trained since birth to command, to smile perfectly, to lie diplomatically. She who had carried the weight of an empire's legacy through exile, humiliation, and survival. She had never known a moment of true peace. Until now. Until sitting beside a man who drooled slightly into a napkin and refused to take anything seriously. She looked around at the room of dignitaries still whispering about honor and legacy and fate, and then at Corey's sleeping form, and something cracked quietly inside her. Not breaking, something freeing. "Idiot," she whispered under her breath. A faint smile touched her lips. That night her thoughts refused to settle. The reception had gone on for hours. Speeches, ceremonies, honors, medals she didn't care about. And all the while Corey had slept through it, only waking near the end to accept a ceremonial sword, mumbling something like thanks before immediately trying to find the dessert table. Now, in her private quarters, she paced restlessly. Her attendant Mela watched her with the patience of someone who'd seen every royal tantrum and knew when not to interrupt. "He's infuriating," Rem snapped, halting mid-stride. "Yes, Your Highness," Mela said, folding gowns into a travel case. "He's arrogant, disrespectful, and lazy." "Yes, Your Highness. And I gave him food." Mela's hands paused. "Indeed, Your Highness. I don't just bring men food." "No, Your Highness." "But I did. I handed him a plate, like some common server." "Yes, Your Highness." Rem stared at her. "You're enjoying this," a little Mela admitted. Rem sighed, slumping into a chair. "The ancient law binds me to him," she said. "He saved my life. That means I'm his companion, officially." "And how do you feel about that?" Mela asked, voice gentle. "I feel," Rem began, then stopped, conflicted. Mela smiled. "You mean attracted?" Rem turned crimson. "I mean obligated," she snapped. "Bound by outdated tradition." Not, not because he's ugh, no." "No what?" "No attraction? None." "Of course, Your Highness." Rem groaned. And somewhere across the ship, in an observation lounge full of stars, Corey lay on a couch, hands behind his head, staring at the galaxy spinning silently beyond. "She's going to be a problem," he muttered. Then he popped a puff into his mouth and grinned. 3 days after the diplomatic circus, Corey discovered what he would later describe as the most perfect couch in the galaxy. Tucked away in the starboard observation lounge used so rarely it didn't even register on official tour routes, was a plush, oversized sectional bathed in the glow of twin suns beyond the window. He sprawled across it, a half-eaten bag of synthetic cheese puffs balanced precariously on his chest, one leg slung over the backrest, and the other twitching lazily in rhythm with the faint hum of the Eternal Light's engines. Stars drifted past. Peace reigned. Until the couch trembled. Corey's leg twitched again, this time involuntarily. The bag of snacks slid off his chest. A second tremor. Stronger. Then a flicker in the lights. Corey blinked. "Seriously?" he groaned, brushing puff crumbs from his shirt. "I get 1 day off." The ship rocked again, harder this time. Red lights flared to life. Klaxons began to howl. Emergency lockdown protocols activated. Corey remained sprawled, muttering to himself. "If this is about that soup spoon again, I swear." The door to the lounge hissed open with a jolt. Rem stormed in, breathless, clad in a sleek Zerari battlesuit that clung to her curves like liquid obsidian. Her expression was sharp, her blue eyes gleaming. "There you are," she snapped. "Obviously. We're under attack." "I noticed." "You're still on the couch." "Correct." She marched up to him. "The Kryvorg fleet has tracked us. They've breached neutral space." Corey sat up reluctantly, stretching. "What'd you do to them?" "My ancestors humiliated them for trading humans as slaves. They've been biding time. Now they've returned vengeful and insane. Classic family drama." Rem didn't smile. "They want me dead," she said, checking the blaster at her hip. "We need to get to the bridge." "We?" Corey raised an eyebrow. "Pretty sure you mean you." The ship jolted again. A console nearby exploded in sparks. Rem turned to leave. "Fine. Stay here and die in comfort." She made it 3 steps. "They'll board through the tertiary docking bay," Corey said flatly. Rem stopped. "What?" He stood slowly, brushing his coat sleeves. "Weakest point in Federation design. Always has been." Her voice lowered. "How do you know that?" He shrugged. "I read things." Rem stared at him. Then she moved to the wall panel and slammed the emergency comm. "Security teams to the tertiary bay," she barked. "Priority 1. When she turned back, Corey was already reclining again. "Aren't you coming?" she demanded. "You got this." She hesitated. But orders were orders. She spun on her heel and left. And just as he'd predicted, 3 Kryvorg assault ships breached the tertiary bay. Their troops surged in all-spike armor and acid rifles, but were met head-on by prepared Federation Marines. The firefight was brutal, explosive, controlled, exactly as Corey had planned. Later that night, a hastily reassembled diplomatic reception tried to project calm. Business as usual, the Federation insisted. Nothing compromised. Corey slouched in a corner sipping some drink he couldn't pronounce. His hair was even messier than usual, like he'd napped through the gunfire. Which in fact, he had. Rem found him still in her armor, visibly bristling. "How did you know?" she demanded. He blinked slowly. "Know what?" "The bay, the attack point." He sipped again. "Lucky guess. No one's that lucky." Corey sighed and cracked one eye open. "Look, the Kryvorg have used the same tactics for 200 years. Boarding through weak shield seams. Tertiary bays are always patched post-launch. No one fixes them properly. You read their military history. I was bored once." Before Rem could respond, it happened. 5 humanoid shapes shimmered into existence right in the center of the hall. Short-range teleportation. Kryvorg assassins. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed. Soldiers fumbled for weapons. The assassins charged straight at Rem, Corey muttered, for crying out loud, and dropped his drink. One assassin lunged, blade raised. Corey moved. Faster than thought, no wasted motion. He intercepted the blade with his bare hand. The metal edge stopped dead against his palm. The assassin gawked. "You ruined my drink," Corey said. What followed was a blur. Security footage later revealed that Corey took down all 5 assassins in under 4 seconds. He never stopped moving, never hesitated. No theatrics, just precision. Every motion efficient, every strike decisive. When the last one hit the floor unconscious and twitching, Corey picked up his half-full glass, sniffed it, and sighed. Still ruined. Silence gripped the hall. No one spoke. No one moved. Corey turned down the rest of the drink and said, "Too noisy in here." Then he walked out. As the stunned dignitary stared at the unconscious assassins, Admiral Voltar approached Rem. "We need him to lead," he whispered urgently. "The Kryvorg won't stop." "But with Silentar's heir, he won't even lead his own feet to dinner on time," Rem said flatly. But she followed Corey anyway. "Found him in the corridor. They want you to command the fleet." "Not interested. They want you to save the galaxy." "I wanted lunch." Rem walked beside him in silence for a moment. Then quietly, "People will die. They always do. And me." Corey stopped. For the first time, his eyes opened fully, no sarcasm, no sleep, just a flash of intelligence so sharp it made her breath catch. Then it was gone. "Basically," he said, resuming his walk. "Yeah." Rem didn't know what terrified her more, that he meant it, or that part of her wanted to follow him anyway. Sleep evaded Rem that night. Her quarters aboard the Eternal Light were expansive and luxurious, fit for royalty, but every inch of velvet silence seemed poised to betray her. The assassination attempt had rattled her in a way the battle in the Colosseum hadn't. Not because of the Kryvorg, they were predictable. Brutal, yes, but ultimately blunt instruments. No, it was Corey that unsettled her. The way he'd moved, the precision, the ease. He wasn't just lucky or strong, he was trained. Not self-taught either. Elite, efficient, deadly. And the most infuriating part, he didn't seem to care. At all. By midnight ship time, she found herself outside his door. It wasn't locked. Of course it wasn't. He probably thought locks were a waste of energy. She stepped inside. The room was dim, bathed in soft blue from the viewport. Beyond it, the stars whispered quietly in the void. Corey lay sprawled on the bed, still clothed, one arm draped off the edge, the other tucked under his head. "I know you're there, Princess," he said without opening his eyes. "Your footsteps are very noble. Lots of heel impact." "We need to talk," she said, stepping further in. That's usually what people say before saying things I don't want to hear. She sat on the edge of the bed, arms folded. Those assassins, you knew exactly how they'd move. Maybe they're predictable. No one moves like you. No one except— Don't say it, he interrupted, cracking one eye open. I'm not him. I'm not some legend reborn. I'm just a guy who can't stand loud things and likes soft couches. Then who are you? She asked softly. Nobody. Just someone who wanted to be left alone. I don't believe you. Not my problem. She leaned in their faces, inches apart now. You saved my life. Twice. That makes it very much my problem. Maybe I just don't like seeing people eaten. Maybe you're more than you pretend to be. Their breath mingled in the narrow space between them. Neither moved. Neither dared break the fragile tension. Corey's voice was barely above a whisper. Why are you here, princess? Rem hesitated. Because, for the first time in my life, I don't know what happens next, she admitted. My empire is gone. My enemies are hunting me. The Federation treats me like a chess piece. And the only person who sees me like a person is you. She didn't expect his hand to rise, but it did, slowly, gently brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. His touch was feather-light, absurdly tender, compared to the raw power he'd displayed earlier. What if I want something? He murmured. Then the space between them disappeared. The kiss wasn't planned. It wasn't careful. It was heat and need and 1,000 unspoken words crashing together. Clothes were forgotten, words discarded. Corey's usual disinterest vanished, replaced by something laser-focused and devastatingly present. His hands mapped her crimson skin like they'd been aching to understand her, who she was beneath all the layers of command and nobility. Her fingers traced scars hidden beneath his coat, each one a mystery, a story never told. She gasped as her hand ran across a brutal one across his ribs. What's this from? She whispered. Not now, he said, pressing his lips to her neck. Questions later. And for once, she didn't press. Their bodies moved in perfect synchronicity, like they'd been crafted to fit together, her curves against his edges, her fire against his quiet. Release came in a rush, overwhelming and mutual, and when she cried out, it was in the ancient tongue of her ancestors. He answered, in the same tongue. She froze, chest rising and falling, skin still tingling. You speak Heiser Aryan, she whispered. That dialect died with my family. I'm good with languages, Corey replied, eyes closed again. You're lying. I'm sleeping. No, you're not. I'm trying to. She traced another scar across his collarbone. These aren't the marks of someone who avoids effort. Maybe I had a rough childhood. Maybe you're not who you pretend to be. He opened his eyes again, and for once there was no evasion. Does it matter? He asked. Right now. In this moment, does it really matter who I am or where I came from? Rem considered that. I suppose not. Good. He pulled her close again. Then let's enjoy now, he said softly, and worry about identities later. She rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, calm. For the first time in years, she felt safe, and in minutes, sleep claimed her. But Corey stayed awake long after, eyes open, expression unreadable. He ran a hand gently through her hair, then reached under the mattress and retrieved a tiny communicator barely larger than a coin. It lit up with a blinking message. Observation phase complete. Proceed to step 2. He stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it, slid the device back beneath the bed, and only then did he close his eyes. Dawn aboard the Eternal Light came not with sunshine, but with a sterile clinical wash of ambient lighting that simulated sunrise for circadian regulation. In the luxury quarters assigned to Rem, it filtered in slowly, glinting off the edges of the sleek glass furnishings and stirring soft shadows along the walls. But the bed was empty. Rem sat at the edge of the room's viewport, one leg folded beneath her, wrapped in a deep blue robe that shimmered with the emblems of her house. Her hair, usually perfectly arranged, hung in loose waves down her back. She stared out at the stars, but her thoughts were fixed behind her. Corey hadn't spoken a word since they woke. He'd risen first, dressed silently, checked his coat pockets for snacks, like it was just another Tuesday, then sat on the edge of the bed and laced up his boots with the same attention someone might give a crossword puzzle. He hadn't looked at her, not once, and now he was leaning against the far wall, arms crossed, chewing slowly on a dried fruit bar of questionable origin. So she said finally, "About last night." He nodded. "Yeah, that happened. And it was nice. Warm, very symmetrical." Rem turned to face him. "That's all." "What else is there?" he asked, shrugging. "You were there. I was there. Chemistry happened. Bit of heat. Lot of sweat. Standard biological bonding scenario. Don't reduce it to that." "I'm not." "You asked." I answered. She stood, walked to him, stopping just short of touching. "Who are you, really?" she asked. "I already told you. Don't say nobody." Her voice was sharper now. "You spoke my people's ancestral tongue. You fought like a living memory. You knew the attack pattern of a race that's been silent for a century. I don't care how lazy you act. No one's that good at faking." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, without expression, he said, "You're right." Rem blinked. "What?" Corey sighed. "You're right. I'm not a nobody." He paced to the edge of the room, pausing beside her ceremonial gown draped across a chair. "I was born in the core," he said. "Sector Zeta Prime. I was enlisted in something called Project Parallax. You won't find it in the archives. It was black ops off the books buried beneath at least 6 layers of deniable jurisdiction." Rem stepped closer, eyes narrowing. "What did they do to you?" Corey's lips quirked into something that wasn't quite a smile. "They taught me to win. Efficiently. Silently. I was 14 when they broke me down and rebuilt me as the ghost of every war humanity denied ever fighting. And you left." "I quit," he said. "Too many missions that didn't matter. Too many leaders who thought success was louder than survival." He turned back to her. "I wasn't born to be a legend, Rem. I was trained to be invisible." "Then why are you still here?" He hesitated. "You." The word hung in the air between them. Rem's breath hitched. Corey stepped closer. "I saw what they were going to do to you in that Coliseum," he said, "and I remembered what it was like being just another pawn, another symbol to be discarded. I've seen enough blood spilled in the name of ceremony." She studied him for a long beat, and then voiced barely above a whisper, "You could have kept running." "I tried," he said, "but you kept screaming." That made her laugh quiet, incredulous. "You're the most maddening man I've ever met." "I get that a lot." Another silence followed, this one softer. Then the lights flickered. Rem tensed immediately. "What now?" An alarm blared. The ship rocked violently. They stumbled, catching the wall as red emergency lights snapped on. "Multiple hull breaches," a voice shouted over the intercom. "Life support compromised on decks 5 through 9. Rem bolted for the door, Corey on her heels. "Bridge," she barked to the guards outside. "Now." They sprinted down the corridor, passing crew scrambling into action. Sparks sprayed from a vent. The floor jolted again. On the bridge, Admiral Voltar was shouting commands, face pale. "Princess, we're under stealth assault. Kryvorg units breached our security net with surgical precision." "And Corey," she demanded. Corey was already at the console scanning. They bypassed weapon systems and environmental protocols. "Targeted the ventilation grid," he said. "They're not here to destroy, they're here to extract." Voltar turned. "Extract what?" "Her," Corey said flatly. Rem stiffened. "No." Then came the voice. It echoed through the bridge in distorted audio projected from some hidden source. "We have what we came for. She is ours now." Rem's eyes widened. "My quarters." Corey was already gone, in his room silence, and an empty bed. No signs of struggle, no noise. But on the pillow, a single Kryvorg insignia etched in scorched metal. Corey picked it up slowly, then crushed it in his hand. "Looks like they want to wake the monster," he muttered. His comm unit crackled to life. "You have 60 hours Silentar's blood, or she dies." Corey's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes darkened. "No longer bored." No longer sleepy, just cold, calculating, and ready. The Kryvorg were many things brutal, disciplined, technologically vicious, but they were not subtle in their pride. Their flagship Vengeance Eternal was a monument to fear 2 miles of black metal bristling with weaponry and carved with symbols of ancient exile. It slithered through deep space like a blade dipped in shadow just outside the Federation's tracking net. Inside, beneath its armored skin, the air was cold and dry. Light panels pulsed like arteries. Machines hummed quietly with malice. Rem sat restrained in the interrogation chamber, wrists locked in a floating magnetic stasis ring that forced her arms out and suspended her midair. Her battlesuit had been stripped away, replaced by a simple fabric tunic. Around her complex pain delivery devices lined the walls like art installations. She was breathing hard not from exertion but from fury. Across from her, General Vra loomed flanked by guards with scar-split visors and razor-laced armor. His skin was that ashen gray of the Kryvorg elite mottled with cybernetic tattoos. His eyes' cold lenses of yellow and blue glinted with unspoken vendettas. Princess Rem Nalia Vra hissed, "Last heir of a stolen legacy. How poetic that your blood will now unlock the weapon your ancestors buried." Rem lifted her chin. "We buried the Star Rift weapon to protect the galaxy from people like you." Vra smirked. "History is written by those who survive." He turned to his technician and gave a curt nod. A neural crown descended slowly toward her head, a device of delicate wires and needle-thin filaments designed to pierce the cortex and extract genetic sequences directly from brain tissue. Fatal, elegant. Rem swallowed hard. Her breath caught. "He'll come," she told herself. But the ship gave no tremor, no alarms, no rescue. Maybe he didn't know. The neural crown buzzed closer. Cold tips brushed her scalp. And then the lights went out. Twice they flickered. Then emergency crimson took over. Screams echoed from the hallway outside. Explosions. A siren. Gunfire. Vra whirled to his console. "Report!" A voice crackled over the intercom. "Sectors 3 through 7 breached. Life support failing." "What by who?" "Unknown security cameras are down, multiple systems offline." Another voice broke in. "We found snack wrappers in the control core." "Repeat snack wrappers." Vra's face twisted. "What?" Then on the main view screen, a warship exploded. No warning, just a brilliant burst of white fire. "The Relentless is gone," shouted a tactical officer. "Internal detonation from failsafe protocols." Vra went pale. "That's impossible." The Zerari failsafe systems were locked centuries ago. No one alive has access. Another warship blew this one, severing into 3 neat pieces. On the bridge's main door, a soft hiss. Everyone turned. There, standing like a man who'd simply wandered into the wrong building looking for a sandwich, was Corey. Coat wrinkled, hair a mess. One hand holding a now-hot burrito, the other holding nothing at all. "You guys really need better door locks," he said between bites. Frost stepped forward, livid. "How?" Corey held up a finger, swallowed. "Shh," mid-chew. Another explosion lit the view screen. Guards rushed him. Corey didn't stop chewing. One ducked. Another spun into a wall. A third tripped on the first and slammed into a console. All unconscious within 10 seconds. Corey stepped over them, glancing at Vra. "I put a tracker on her," he said. "When she was sleeping. Basic precaution." Vra snarled. "You triggered the failsafe." Corey nodded, finishing his burrito. "Trying to reheat lunch. Pressed the wrong button. Kinda your fault, really should label things better. You've doomed us all. You can't stop the chain reaction." "Nope," Corey said, popping his shoulders, "but I can leave." He crossed the floor toward Rem, who was still restrained and blinking at him like he'd emerged from a myth and a fever dream. "You came," she whispered. "Told you I don't like loud things. They made this very loud." He grabbed the neural crown midair and crumpled it in one hand like foil. Then, with a twist of his fingers, shattered the magnetic restraints. Rem fell forward into his arms. "You absolute idiot," she said, her voice a mix of fury and something suspiciously like relief. "What did you do?" "Microwave accident. You destroyed an entire fleet. I'm efficient." "You." "Let's yell in the shuttle," he suggested, sweeping her off her feet, preferably while escaping. Vra lunged one last time, vibroblade drawn. Corey caught the blade between two fingers. "Seriously," he sighed. One flick. Vra flew backward across the room and hit a pillar unconscious. Together, Corey and Rem sprinted through the crumbling ship. Explosions rocked the hull as chain-reactive failsafes turned the Vengeance Eternal into a fireworks show. They made it to the hangar. Corey yanked the shuttle bay doors open with his bare hands. "No food in here either," he muttered. "Worst ship ever." Inside the small escape craft, Rem finally exhaled. As they launched into the black, just in time to watch the Kryvorg fleet detonate in synchronized light, she turned to him. "What did you really do?" Corey leaned back in the pilot seat, feet up. "Pressed a button," he said. "System recognized my DNA." Rem stared. "It keyed itself to you." Corey nodded. "Weird, right?" She grabbed his chin, turning his face to hers. "Silentar wasn't just a warrior," she whispered. "He was married to the last empress. Their descendants, they vanished." He didn't answer. "Who are you?" He looked her dead in the eyes, then said softly, "Just a guy with weird DNA who wanted a nap." She stared at him, torn between awe and exasperation. "You're impossible." He grinned. "I get that a lot." Behind them, the fleet burned, and in the silence between worlds, their shuttle slipped into the void toward whatever came next. The victory celebration at Federation headquarters was nothing short of obscene. Flags from all 18 member systems fluttered above the enormous ceremonial platform orbiting Varnus Prime. Light displays danced across the sky, forming portraits of the Kryvorg fleet exploding in slow, exaggerated replays. Choirs sang. Cannons fired plasma salutes. A delegation of genetically engineered doves was released into zero gravity, where they immediately collided with a comm relay and had to be discreetly swept away. Corey stood at the center of it all, wearing the stiffest, most uncomfortable uniform ever conceived. An amalgamation of Royal Zerari insignia, Federation battle honors, and a sword that looked like it had been stolen from a Renaissance fair. He swayed slightly. His eyes were closed. "Is he meditating?" whispered one dignitary. No, Rem muttered from beside him. "He's asleep, standing up." Admiral Volter, to his credit, continued his speech with the fervor of a man who refused to be fazed. And so, by a unanimous vote of the council, he bellowed, "We recognize Corey Laser, descendant of Silentar Savior, of Princess Remnalia, destroyer of the Kryvorg Armada, and rebuilder of galactic peace, as Supreme Admiral of the Third Fleet, Governor of the Tarsian Sector, and recipient of the Medal of Ultimate Valor." Thunderous applause shook the station. Corey didn't move. Rem nudged him with her elbow. He jerked upright, blinking. "Well, yeah, thanks. Great. Where's the food?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Rem stepped forward, smiling tightly. "The Supreme Admiral has entered a reflective state of ancient warrior humility. We will proceed to the banquet hall for further ceremonial honors." She grabbed his sleeve and dragged him off the platform. Later at the banquet, a reporter asked her what ancient warrior humility looked like. Rem stared at Corey, now curled up on a bench, drooling onto his ceremonial robe while clutching a plate of unidentifiable meatballs, and replied, "It's rare." The rest of the evening blurred in a haze of toast, ceremonial gift exchanges, and speeches that blended into one another. Corey reappeared briefly to eat 4 servings of dessert, then vanished again like a particularly sarcastic ghost. When Rem returned to her quarters that night, a junior officer approached her nervously. "Your Highness," he said, offering a crumpled napkin. "He left this for you." Scrawled across it in barely legible handwriting were the words, "I'm tired." Don't wake me. Rem didn't know whether to scream or laugh. She did neither. Instead, she sat by the window and stared out at the stars, wondering for the first time what it would mean if she never saw him again. 1 month later, Rem stood before the newly formed Democratic Council of Zuri. Her crimson robe shimmered with ceremonial weight as she addressed the packed chamber of elected delegates. And so she declared, "I relinquish the crown and all the powers it bestows to the will of the people. May the Zurari Republic rise in peace and strength, no longer ruled by bloodlines, but by choice." Thunderous applause followed. Mila, her ever-loyal attendant, met her in the private quarters afterward. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "I'm not a queen anymore," Rem said softly. "And honestly, I never wanted to be." Mila tilted her head. "And this has nothing to do with a certain drifter who dropped a galactic fleet like a sack of potatoes and then vanished." Rem's silence was answer enough. "You've had intelligence officers tracking him for 3 weeks." "Coincidence," Rem muttered. Mela smiled. "Of course. The abandoned moon of Lycia 4 was unclaimed, overlooked, and according to most unimportant. Terraforming from an old mining initiative had left it habitable if slightly uneven. Purple mountains ringed crystalline lakes. Wildlife flourished quietly, and in the middle of a sun-drenched plateau stood a simple stone house half-built from ship parts. Rem's shuttle landed with a whisper. She didn't knock. She didn't have to. The door creaked open at her touch. Inside quiet. Cozy. A half-eaten bag of snacks on the table. One coat tossed across the back of a chair. A console set to loop peaceful wind sounds. No weapons. No fanfare. Just peace. She found him asleep, of course, face buried in a pillow, breathing steady. She stood there for a moment watching him, then slowly removed her traveling clothes, slid under the blanket, and curled against him. Without opening his eyes, he wrapped an arm around her and murmured, "You're the loudest person I still haven't kicked out." She smiled against his chest. "And you're the laziest hero the galaxy's ever tried to worship." "Let them," he muttered. "I'll nap through it." A pause. Then softly, "You staying?" She kissed his shoulder. "I'm tired," she whispered. "Don't wake me." His breathing evened out, and for once, Corey fell into real undisturbed sleep. No alarms. No monsters. No explosions. Just quiet. And her. 3 months passed. The galaxy moved on because it always does. The Kryvorg remnants, decapitated and scattered, signed a peace accord under strict Federation oversight. Their colonies, stripped of warships, began reconstruction with quiet reluctance. No one wanted another war, especially not when the last one had ended in a burst of microwave confusion and royal bloodline fail-safes. Back on Lycia 4, nothing exploded. Nothing screamed. Nothing tried to steal ancient DNA codes. It was quiet. And for Corey Laser, that was everything. He lounged on a wooden chair overlooking a glimmering azure lake, feet kicked up on the stone railing of a modest terrace. The double suns of the Lycian system were setting in spectacular unison, casting long golden shadows across the wildflowers. In one hand he held a snack bag, in the other a simple glass of cold tea. A breeze passed, stirring the edges of his loose tunic. No alarms, no announcers, no one calling him Supreme Admiral, just silence. And a former princess scrolling through political news beside him. Rem's posture had relaxed noticeably since the last time she wore a crown. Her crimson skin glowed in the late light, her long silver hair now tied in a messy braid over one shoulder. She wore no insignia, no jewels, just a soft tunic and a content scowl as she read from her datapad. "The treaty between the Federation and the Kryvorg colonies was ratified yesterday," she murmured, not looking up. "Apparently, getting your entire military leadership turned into fireballs makes people open to compromise." Corey didn't look up either. "Told you. Sometimes blowing up your problems is a viable negotiation tactic." Rem sighed. "Your strategy lacked nuance." Still worked. You nearly died. He reached into the bag, popped a puff into his mouth, and chewed. But I didn't. She shut the datapad with a flick of her finger. You do realize that every time someone tries to explain how we saved the galaxy, they end up sounding completely insane. Good. Maybe they'll stop asking. She turned toward him. You're a legend now, you know. I was always a legend, just no one believed me. Because you were sleeping. Exactly. She rested her chin on her hand. What if the galaxy comes knocking again? I'll pretend I'm out. What if they find you? He met her gaze, serious for once. Then they'll wish they hadn't. A long pause. Then she asked, and me? What am I in your legend? He smirked. You're the part that made the ending better than the beginning. Rem blinked, then looked away quickly. That was uncharacteristically sweet. I'm allowed one sentiment per solstice, Corey said. You just spent it. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was earned. Earned through fire noise, betrayal, microwave buttons, and desperate escapes. It was a silence they'd fought for, one they'd killed for, and both of them had chosen to live in it. They sat together until the suns dipped behind the mountains. Neither moved to turn on the lights. The lake below shimmered with starlight. A breeze whispered secrets through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called a soft trill that sounded suspiciously like a yawn. Corey reached into the bag and offered her the last snack puff. She hesitated, then took it. Their fingers brushed not for the first time, but perhaps for the first time without any pretense. I never thought I'd end up here, Rem said quietly. With you. On a forgotten moon. In a house that smells like burnt protein bars. Better than being worshipped in a marble palace, Corey said. I gave up my throne. I gave up whatever I was. Another long pause. Worth it? She asked. He looked at her dead serious. I got to finish my nap. She laughed then. A real full laugh. The kind she hadn't known how to make as a princess. And in that moment, as the stars blinked awake above them, something subtle and cosmic shifted. The galaxy didn't need them today. The galaxy could wait. Epilogue. Somewhere deep beneath a hidden Federation data vault, a file updated itself. Subject Corey laser status, dormant designation. Silantar descendant class capabilities unlocked. Override. Access denied. Surveillance suspended per Directive 9. Let him sleep. Narrator's note. If you've made it this far, dear listener, then you understand the truth. Some heroes shout their legacy from mountaintops. Others whisper it into a lover's skin. And a rare few just want snacks and peace and a soft couch in the stars. So next time someone saves your galaxy with a shrug and a yawn, maybe don't ask too many questions. Just say thank you, and don't wake them.